Hi, welcome to 5 Minutes of Torah with the BI Rabbi. I'm Rabbi Adam Stein. You know, one of the most difficult challenges in our interactions with people is knowing when to forgive. It's a major topic of Christian and Jewish theology, probably others as well, and just a big challenge in our lives. It brings up so many questions. How do we approach someone who has wronged us? How do we let wounds heal and forgive? Does it take time, or does it take something else? In our Parsha this week, Esau meets his brother Jacob again for the first time in 20 years. It's been a rough story. When these brothers were young, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for a pot of soup. Later, Jacob steals Esau's not his birthright. He already has the birthright, but he steals the blessing of the firstborn through trickery from his father and with the help of his mother. And Jacob leaves his parents' home because his brother Esau was ready to kill him out of anger for those things I just described. And now we read this week that Jacob and Esau finally meet again after over 2 decades. So as we lead up to this big meeting, we're told much of how Jacob prepares for this confrontation. He sends messengers out to scout the scene and tell Esau that Jacob has been living with Lavan, their uncle, that he's acquired a fair amount of livestock. Just sort of tell him what's up in Jacob's life. Acquiring a lot of livestock was important in those times in agricultural societies. And they come back reporting to Jacob that Esau has acquired 400 men, like sort of suggesting that it's like an army. And so Jacob splits up his family and his livestock into 2 camps, so that if one gets attacked by Esau, at least the other half of his family will survive. He's minimizing the damage. Then he goes off on his own, separate from those 2 camps, and has his famous encounter with the angel, the wrestling with the angel dream. But what about Esau? We're not really told anything about how he prepares for this. Well, before we find out that it's a peaceful reunion, we might think that Esau is preparing for an attack. But perhaps he was mulling over all these things that Jacob did to him in the past, how they each tried to please their father, and how it all turned out so unsuccessfully for Esau. Think about this. As a young man, he's fulfilling his familiar role and hunting, bring back food to his parents. And that's why he's so exhausted and hungry that one day that he sells his birthright out of hunger for the pot of lentil stew. Years later, when his father's blessing is stolen by Jacob, he responds with deep pain. It says that with a pitched voice and tears begs for his father's blessing, which his father had already given away and can't give to him. So Esau keeps striving for approval. When he hears that his father Isaac commands Jacob not to take a Canaanite wife, Esau, wishing to please his parents, takes a new wife and a daughter of Ishmael, a descendant of Abraham. He says, "Look, Mom, look, Dad, I married someone in the family." That was good back then. So he tries to please his parents, but nothing works. And Jacob and his conspiring mother, Rebekah, really thwarted him at every pass. So you come to our Parsha, the reunion scene in chapter 33 of Genesis, and Jacob and all of us reading expect the worst from him, that he's going to attack, and he instead runs to greet Jacob and embraces him and kisses him and weeps. Even in the Hebrew, in those 2 verses, in verse 3 and 4, you get a series of consecutive verbs, Vayishlach arza, and Vayarot Esav likrato vaychabek kehu vayipol al tzavarav. He runs to greet him and he hugs him and he falls on his neck, and they hug and embrace each other. This pent-up anticipation of a bloody reunion is dropped as we breathe a sigh of relief that these brothers can not only hug and kiss each other like family, but cry together too. So what was Esau thinking? Why forgive this conniving, deceiving brother Jacob? Was he convinced to have compassion by the 7 times that Jacob prostrated himself on the ground before him when approaching? So that's what Rashi says, our famous commentator, quoting a midrash from the rabbis. So that's possible. Or maybe Esau went through his own growth process in these 20 years since they last saw each other. It must have been some serious growth, though, seeing as Esau had sworn to kill his brother Jacob a few chapters earlier. But perhaps Esau suffered over the years as Jacob did. We know Jacob suffered through years of hard work for their uncle Lavan, but we aren't told what Esau did in those intervening years. It could have been anything. Esther Spitzer, a scholar, writes in an article that suffering in itself does not heal. Only suffering that has meaning and is accepted willingly has the power to heal and to transform an individual into a whole person. She quotes Jung, who named this process of growth from one stage of awareness to another, individuation. Transformation, or real change of character, can take place in a person only when, through suffering, he engages, or she, in an active struggle with the shadow, the dark side of himself. Now that piece is called the Jungian Midrash on Jacob's dream, so obviously it's focusing on Jacob and his dream and the shadow, but I think that it could easily be talking about Esau as well. This week, as we think about Jacob and about Esau, the brother we think about and reflect on less often, usually, let us think about both of them and strive this week to be as forgiving and reflective as Esau. I want to close by inviting you to our wonderful Hanukkah program coming up. It's on the Sunday preceding Hanukkah, so December the 10th. It's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. here. It is called Spongekia because we're making a big Chanukiah out of sponges. If you've never made a Chanukiah out of sponges, you should come join us for a great day for kids and adults alike. Again, that's December 10th from 11 to 1.